Okay, hi everybody. Type yes if you can hear me, if it's coming in loud and clear in the chat or Q&A. Just don't want to make the mistake I did last time where I'm talking to myself for the first 30 seconds. But it looks like it's working well. That's good. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out on a Friday afternoon or evening. I know you got a lot of things to do, so we're going to make this really fun. It's going to be really interactive. We actually have a tool where we want you guys to actually use it as we're going through it. And we might even have a webcam appearance of some of you guys, if you guys are up for that too. So it's going to be really fun, really different kind of webinar that you probably haven't been able to do or experience before. So I wanted to just get started and thank you all for that. It's good to see Brian here, Charlie, Keith, Misty, Seraphima, lots of good names, good faces. A lot of you have even been on a few of these webinars with us already. So let's go ahead and get started. Just like on the other ones, we always ask a question when we have these webinars so we can kind of get an idea for what your challenges are. And the question I wanted to ask on this one was, why are some people harder to communicate or work with than others? And if you have some good ideas or good answers for this, go ahead and share them in the chat. I have a few from your answers on the registration form that I want to share too. And we'll go through these and be able to kind of hint at what are some of the common themes we're seeing in communication problems and how do you get around them. So here's a good one to start off with. Jennifer said that a lot of people keep information close to them and their expectations are muddy. Yusuf said they don't imagine humans' complexity. And that's true. A lot of us think that everyone's just like us, and that if I communicate the way that I like to be communicated to, then it should work for them too. But that's not the case. Personality differences, motivations, and communication style, those are big. Keith says poor listening skills. That's another really big one. This one right here from Jessica is really a lot of what we'll talk about today too. And then Kyla had a really good one. They're just crazy. But unfortunately, we can't use that excuse for everyone sometimes. So if this sounds familiar, type yes. For this is the first one's what I experienced in one of my last jobs. Time after time, my bosses have had a direct communication style, and it completely goes against my softer approach. I feel like they don't respect me because of this. In my last sales job, I was constantly told I was too nice, and you had to be a lot meaner, and you had to be a lot more just don't care what people think, just go right after them and balls to the wall and everything else like that. So I got a lot of miscommunication because of that. Some of the people on my team are the lone wolf type. Collaborating with them can be like pulling teeth. How do I work with them? We all know those people who are kind of a little bit more shy, a little bit more reserved, and it's harder to get some of the interaction or something else you might want out of them. Or maybe you have the opposite problem. The girl next to me never shuts up. She has to be talking constantly. It's really hard to concentrate on my work. What should I do? If any of those are problems you've come up against, go ahead and type yes. If you have other ones that you see, type them in there too, because the more we share, the better we learn. Yes, good, Misty. But the other thing is that we know there are people out there who can just connect with about anyone. And how do they do that? So that's what we're going to hopefully help you out with today. I wanted to, before we jump in, I wanted to kind of do a quick review of one of the lessons we did at the very beginning on Monday. If you weren't on the first webinar on Monday, type yes in the box here so I can see how many of these people I can kind of get caught up here. Okay, so Keith wasn't? Cool. Rob's looking like he wasn't? All right, great. So what we talked about a lot on Monday was a science called DISC. And if you picture this circle, like this is all the people that are out there and their personality styles, you put a line through the center, and on one side you'd have extroverts, on the other you might have introverts, right? And then if you cut that in half, on the bottom you might have people who are people-oriented, and on the top you might have people who are task-oriented. And we called each of these D, I, S, and C. So if you were an extrovert that was task-oriented, you were a D. and that was represented by like the eagles out there. The I was if you were an extrovert and you're very people-oriented, so you're kind of like the parrots. The S's were people-oriented, but they're maybe a little bit more introverted, and those were kind of the doves. And then the last one was the C, which was introverted who were task-oriented, and those were kind of seen as the owls. And we talked about each of these different styles, which I won't go through in detail here, but just to get some of those people caught up. So each of these styles had some characteristics about them. So for example, the D style was more decisive, they're more forceful, they're more strong-willed. I would be more magnetic, more warm, more trusting, more sociable. The S would be more resistant to change, they'd be patient, they'd have that relaxed style. And the C's would be more tactful, careful, worrisome, exacting, and neat. So the reason why I wanted to share that is that each of us kind of fits in these different segments, not just one of them. We'll have different levels of each of those, but it's a good way to kind of understand that if you're working with someone who's going to be a D, who's very direct and very, who isn't going to beat around a bush when it comes to his style of management or his way of working, you can't really go up to them and communicate in a way that's very relaxed and not very much to the point, and you're rambling and rambling. They'll get sick of it. So those are kind of little nuances we're going to pick up on today in this webinar and kind of show you how you can find out what kind of styles those people around you have. It could be your boss, it could be the people you manage, it could be your own spouse. You literally can do this with anyone, just like we said in the webinar. And just to get you caught up, we've been using this image for each of these webinars to kind of show you the formula we go through on Careertopia. So we start with knowing yourself, and that's where we talked about DISC and motivators. And so this next part is really about understanding others and being able to use this understanding to build those effective relationships. And that's what our goal is for today. So on Monday, we talked about DISC. That was kind of how you do the work you do. On Wednesday, we talked about our motivators, which was why you do the work you do. And if you haven't seen any of these webinars, it's fine. We're going to send out a link with recordings too, so you can watch those if these sound interesting to you and you want to see those really quickly. And then today we're going to talk about the who. So this is how you connect to those people around you so that you can get further in your career. So a little about me. I'm the editor of Careertopia. I'm certified as a professional behavior analyst, and I've helped create the tool that we're going to learn about today. And Carol, she's also going to be on the webinar here. And she has a lot more certifications than I do, so she's really the expert here. I'm just the facilitator, really. And she's gotten a lot of different experiences with coaching people on these communication styles, on their work styles, on what motivates them, on what gets them further in their careers. So she's going to be a great resource here on this call. And you probably know about us from Careertopia. We've been featured on a lot of these sites. We're known as one of the 50 top young careers blogs out there. And we have this free course that we'll send a resource to as well. That kind of really takes all these things that we've been talking about for this week and puts them into like a self-training course where you can go through all the different lessons. There's 12 in total. And you can get an idea for your DISC style, your motivators, and using this tool that we're going to show today. So we're also part of the Balanced Work Life company. And what that is Balanced Work Life is kind of like the bigger company, and my Careertopia is a little part of that. And at Balanced Work Life, what we really do is we help executives through coaching. And we do a lot of these scientifically validated career talent assessments that deal with people's communication styles, their work styles, and their motivations so that teams can really work better together, so you can have a better understanding of yourself and your teammates as well. And we do a lot of coaching along those lines too. So here are a few of our clients, just so you know who we've worked with in the past. And here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about why most people are bad communicators. We're going to show why treating others how you like to be treated isn't always good advice, and demonstrate a tool you can use to understand anyone's communication style. So what I'm going to share here is actually from a slideshow that we put together for this, and we'll talk to it as we go, but this is really meant to be something that you could even read on your own and figure it all out yourself, I'm sure. But with every person we meet, we can have two outcomes. We can connect or we can conflict. So the choice is ours here. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have more connections with less conflict? And the notion that goes with these careers is that all things being equal, people will refer, hire, and promote those they know, like, and trust. So it's fair to say success in careers is based on how successfully we form relationships. And how successful we are in forming relationships is based on how well we communicate with others. Therefore, if we want to be good at relationships, we must also be good at communicating, whether you're old friends or you just met. So there's just one platinum rule, and that's to meet the other person's needs, not yours. Do this, and you'll become a better friend, parent, son, partner, improve your leadership style. You'll create win-win relationships. You'll improve workplace morale, and you'll build top-performing teams. So how do we get better at communicating? This is where we're going to have Carol kind of come in and teach us some of these things, what we can do to be
All right,
better communicators.
Thanks, Bryce. So really, basically, step number one is really recognizing that everyone has a different communication style. It's pretty obvious, either by watching how they use their hand gestures, the speed of their language, their body language, the tone of their voice, the pace of their walk. So all these things you just start paying attention to, and you can start to understand whether they're that eagle or whether they're the parrot or whether they're a dove or an owl, just based strictly on observable behavior. Which also leads us to understanding that everybody is very diverse, especially under differing situations, whether it's setting goals that you have in your life, or in your career. What are your fears? Understanding a person's fears really helps you better understand how to communicate with that person. And then also, it's how will they react to certain situations. By understanding a person's communication style, you can be far more effective with them if you know exactly how they may react to a specific request or topic. So it's really all about our perception and understanding that person at a deeper level.
Yeah, and to demonstrate this really quickly, what if you all type in the chat what some of your fears
Mm.
are regarding your careers, and we'll see how different they are. We'll see, maybe even you can type some of your goals that you might have, and you'll see how different those are too. It's really interesting when you start to kind of put those things together. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, harboring secret resentments leading to job
Mhm.
termination later.
Anybody else? You have to kind of think too, what tone of voice do you have? Are you soothing? Do you talk fast? Do you talk loud? All of these things, you can start to pinpoint what your communication style is and understand how you may be projecting yourself onto others. It's, self-awareness is the most important thing, and then it's recognizing these traits or attributes in other people so that you can identify how much you have to actually adapt your style to become effective in communicating with someone else's style, especially when it's different. So when we don't recognize the needs of others, that's what really gets us into some tough situations. So we've got some people writing in. Let's see here, taking a job that I think will be a great fit based on my communication style, and then discovering later that it was the wrong decision. Not a, yeah, that
Yeah, that's a big
takes
fear.
years and years of experience. Just better understanding yourself, Misty. And really remember, if one of the things that you have to do when you go on interviews is really understand the company you go to work for. It's what your values are. Sometimes it's just not observable behavior. It's not just your communication style. It's understanding the culture of that company and making sure that the values of that company are in alignment with yours. Sometimes that's when you decide, oh, I've picked the wrong place to work for. Not appearing authoritative enough, right? And I work with believe it or not, several leaders who are at top level that I really work diligently with in trying to get them to assert themselves more. It doesn't mean you have to be aggressive and real forceful, but most people find that to be what they think is an authoritative leadership style, is to be somewhat aggressive and loud and speaking with strong, almost a large ego, right? But we're all different, and we can all accomplish becoming that very strong leader. I have several that I call very middle of the road, very even tempered leaders that fit in very, very well, Rob. So think about that. It's all about, how do you, are you task oriented? Remember the wheel. Are you task oriented? Some of us are, or some of us prefer to be around people. If you're task oriented, you're going to be not unhappy being behind your desk all day. But if you're people oriented, you really need to focus on jobs that you're interacting constantly and things are always changing around you. So also pick up on whether somebody is an introvert. There are introverts and then there's extroverts, and those are pretty obvious when you start to really observe a person's behavioral style. So based on just those very simple observable behavioral traits, it's easy to identify that everybody has different needs. And so you have to even look at a little further. So I'm a rules follower. I love to know what the rules, and I'm going to follow the rules. Doesn't mean that I won't speed, but I'm not going to speed, 10 plus miles over the speed limit for somebody to pick me up. But so it's observing how, even like I said, watching somebody drive, you can determine whether or not they're a rules follower. The next one is, do you want control? When you think of a high D who's very task oriented, it's all about control. They'll get into a conversation with you, and if you start to notice that this person is always trying to, get their opinion in and get people to listen to them, you're going to be able to quickly identify, they must be a high D. Somebody who might want to help others, and this is another easy trait to watch for. Again, they could be a very people-oriented individual. So it's doctors, it's nurses, it's the executive assistant. If you know you're one of those people, or if you're watching somebody else that you realize they're really all about people, then you know that your communication styles are going to be very much alike. If you're the high D or C, then, and you just want to, share your ideas, and probably not so much. You see this gentleman, it's all about sharing ideas. So this may be somebody who's like the parrot, right? Very talkative, colorful, coming up with all kinds of new ideas. And of course, all very different.
All very different. You can
All very
already start to
different.
see.
And so lastly, people have different perceptions of you. And that was always, that is something that you have to think about. How you see yourself may not be exactly how others perceive you. So remember, perfectionist, that's somebody always going by the book, somebody who's always critical, going to ask those tough questions of you. They can be usually seen as somebody who's a high C. Sometimes somebody who comes across very intense, competitive, a win-win. They can be very abrupt and almost have that sense of urgency to get things done and move on to the next. They can be overwhelming sometimes when you're the very opposite. Say you're more optimistic and trusting and very emotional. And those individuals can be seen as being dependent on others. And then the next slide is really somebody who's very composed and non-expressive, very passive. So again, these are just very observable traits that once you start to hone in and start to identify them, you'll be able to adapt your style based upon theirs in order to start meeting their communication needs.
Yeah, are any of these traits resonating with you guys? What are any of these words picking up with kind of your style so far? Yeah? What are some of the examples that some of you guys have so we can kind of help you? Because what we're going to do next is once you start recognizing these things, we're going to show you how you can actually take that and know how you should interact with those kinds of types. like how you should act with someone who's that eagle type, the D, or how you should act with someone who's on the other side, the S, the dove. So knowing these kinds of recognizing these different traits is the first step, and then we'll connect where that goes in the next little bit. We'll miss these typing some things. We'll keep going and come back to that. Oh, there she goes. She says, I work with 18 and 25 volunteers and have seen them all. Yeah,
You're
exactly.
you're constantly adapting. Yeah. Yeah, she's
Seraphine's
typing
got
away
something
here.
here too.
Ah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, when you have to work, I have a story I'm going to share with you about that. Um, what do you do when you're working with a lot of people out there in the public? And how do you read someone really quickly, even if you don't know
So
them at all, right?
yeah,
That's
so
that's a really
Seraphina
great
and
skill to
everybody,
have.
what I would say when you're working with a group of people that you don't know very well, I always say you need to approach them like you're a dove. So remember, a dove is very patient, relaxed. They're the, harmony, very calm. Until you really can start to recognize some attributes about them. But just don't be real aggressive. Be very soft in your approach and the tone of voice, and very earnest. So, and even writing
Yeah.
speeches, I always
And I
tell
think,
people, if you don't know your audience very well, always write from an S perspective. Go ahead, Bryce.
yeah, and I was going to hit on that too because of all the assessments that we run, and these assessments are run by lots of other people as well, you start to see which ones are more general in the public out there. And wasn't the S, that peacekeeper style, one of the more
They are
prominent
actually.
types
Our
out there?
society used to be a pretty strong DI, but over time now we're seeing that the S style is starting to have a larger percentage of our population. It's very interesting. But also know that, if, say you are an S style, the D style, when you confront that D style, it's going to make you feel a little overwhelmed because they are very direct and dogmatic, whereas a high S, that dove, very soft approach, very, like you say, peacemaker. So those are two opposing styles. So this slide speaks to that. Yeah.
That's a perfect, yeah.
So yeah, so anytime
They're on opposite
it's kind of
sides.
that take charge attitude, and I may see that because I'm a very high S. I'll see that, well, that's somebody that's very bossy and demanding, and that person's just thinking, if they're a high D, they're just thinking, no, I'm just getting things done. I'm direct because that's what the situation calls for, is to have somebody lead it and make sure that we're getting things done on a timely manner. But that's my perception. He may have a different perception. If you recognize the differences, then you can start to respond appropriately. And that's what I teach our people, is really understanding that you can get that win-win result in every relationship that you engage with by adapting your communication style. Is it exhausting? Yes, it can be. But it is a great way to be able to connect with individuals.
Yeah. Just like you said, you start by connecting
Absolutely.
and adapting to these. Their
Differences, needs,
differences.
and
Yep.
perceptions, um, but I don't know where to adapt.
That's probably what you're all thinking, right? Yeah, this is nice. I can see some of those styles in different people, but what am I supposed to change about how I talk
Exactly.
to them or work with them? Yeah,
Exactly.
that's the real question, right?
Well,
And you're not a psychic. No one is. It's not like it's you can look
right.
them up in a book or anything really easily. So that's what we really kind of went about to make the people profiler for. And we're going to show you that here in a second. So the People Profiler is a web app, and you can find it there at thepeopleprofiler.com. In fact, if you want to follow along with us, we're going to demonstrate it here in a second. You can go ahead and sign up for a trial. and it's free. There's no credit card or anything you have to worry about. Um, and that will let you go ahead and kind of go through the practice that we're going to show you here. But basically, the process is once you're on this site, you're going to think of someone you want to connect with. Then you're just going to answer 8 questions about them. And these are questions that are similar to the kind of questions you get asked when you fill out your own DISC assessment. And then it's going to have you, you're going to ask things like, what are they most like? What are they least like? And then you just get your results. So, and what do those results look like? Well, they show you this person's kind of goals, their needs, their perceptions, all these things we talked about. Their strengths, their differences, their fears. And on top of that, we also have a template that kind of gives you a fill-in-the-blank communication game plan. So you can kind of make a roadmap to outline what your objective is with this person. If it's like a boss or it's more business-related kind of thing. You can build a communication strategy and create your elevator pitch. So just to recap, and then we'll go right into the tool and show you how that works too. We've learned how to recognize people who have different communication styles. We understand each of us has different goals, fears, reactions, needs, and perceptions of the world, and we connect successfully with people by adapting to them. And we can use the people profiler to help us with that. So now I actually want to get some of you involved directly. If you feel like you are technical savvy enough to, you've been on enough webinars, you can kind of, you have a webcam, you know how to set that up. Like maybe you're on a laptop or whatever, and you want to join Carol and I up here in the skybox or whatever that is. Go ahead and hit the raise hand symbol on the top. You might see that. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and demonstrate this tool with one of the people that you might want to profile.
And it
Find
can
out
even
their
be a family
information about.
member. Everybody has fun with this tool to profile their significant other or maybe their best friend. But if you have somebody that, yeah, somebody that you
And
work,
don't be shy. Well, this is an
if you have
experiment
somebody
for us
that you
too,
work
so.
with, you want to figure out, you're not able to figure them out, let's profile them. Oh, Serafina, too bad. So nobody's raising their hand.
No one wants to do it. I'm just gonna have to do it by myself. Let's see if I can pull up a browser here, and I'll just go to it, log in.
So we call this 60 seconds to better communication, and it may take us a little longer than 60 seconds, but it truly is a great application to better understand somebody quickly.
Yeah. Even if you guys don't have a webcam, if you have a mic or anything, we can also do it that way. If it's just a built-in mic on a laptop or whatever. So we'll maybe demonstrate the first one, and then if you feel more brave, we'll let someone else do it. But basically, you just put in someone's name. So I'll do my wife, because I can think of that person pretty quickly, right? And so the first question is, when speaking, this person is pleasant, mild, and genuine, is talkative, expressive, enthusiastic, colorful, and so forth. So what you're doing is on the up arrows, you're putting what they're most like, and on the down arrows, you're putting what they're least like, and you're just selecting one for each of those. So she's very expressive, very talkative. Um, and she's pretty good at that too, so I wouldn't say that's her least. Uh, yeah, it's probably that because she's both of those too. And then so forth. You just really go through these questions and you just follow this along. So we got, I'll just go through these really quickly.
So read
Let's
off the
see,
question.
she is probably, yeah, so when listening to this person, I'd say she shows facial expressions. It's probably the
What is she
most,
least like?
um, maybe
Okay.
cautious, shows little response. And the third one, when questioning this person, um, she wants to learn details. She's a girl. Whatever, whatever we're telling, I'm talking with my friends like, oh, Todd, he's getting married or whatever, and then she'll be like, oh, when's he getting married? I don't know. Where's he getting married? I don't know. Who's he marrying? I don't know. I just found out he's getting married. So yeah, that's definitely her. Um, Least like would probably be she doesn't really care about bottom line results as much when she's talking. In conversation, she is She's pretty animated, and she's probably least. She's not very analytical in conversation. She's thoughtful though, so it could be that, it could be something else, but that's fine. Um, when observing this person's physical behavior, you notice he or she always is definitely in control. I think that's it, and that's probably the least one. Values is low key, and values personal space would be the least. And we just have a few more. When you see this person's interactions with others, you notice that he or she pretty friendly. Yep. She's probably that actually. So then if you pick the wrong one, it's easy to change it. And then the least I'd say that one. And then when this person responds to change, he or she is eager, optimistic, trusting, hesitant, tolerant, ready to help, leads others. Yeah, she's probably that one the most. And least is
Which one is that?
probably that one. Is cautious, quality focused, and process oriented. And then when this person responds to work situations, he or she is pretty cooperative, and she's a risk taker when it comes to work. She's a cosmetologist, like I said on some of the other ones, so she'll do all kinds of whatever people want, take it out, try whatever. So once you got them all in there, you just click get results, and this is what will pop up as it's looking at it. So it'll tell me what type of style she has. There's over, how many styles are there
There's
now,
60.
Carol? Like
Yeah.
60 something in here? 60, okay. Yeah, and what these numbers refer to is if you actually take one of our assessments that gets your real results for what kind of style you have, these will match up to that as well. So you can kind of see where you compare or where your friend compares to you. And you can look through your report and see it on an actual wheel of where the differences are. It's kind of cool. So yeah, like you can see, here's some of her key strengths. She's challenge oriented. She's forward-looking and future-oriented. She's creative in the approach to solving problems and energetic and direct in pursuing goals. And you can see even more about goals, planning to succeed, work the plan, ability to achieve goals according to their plan. Yep, all these things definitely sound just like her. And unfortunately, you just have to take my word for it because none of you guys would volunteer for this, but it really does work pretty well. Um, and then here's the do's and don'ts. And here's what's interesting about this. This isn't just a regular list of obvious communication do's for everyone. Some of these do's could be don'ts on certain people. So that's what's kind of really cool about this feature too. And then here are the don'ts that you have as well. So she doesn't like to be ordered around. Um, Pretend you're an expert if you really aren't. She'll pick up on that really quickly. And then we have some more on this table of when you're planning, what should you do? How do you open a conversation with them? When you are discussing, when you are presenting your ideas, when you are responding to their concerns, if you need to gain their commitment. So it gives you all this extra nice feedback that you can get. And then you can download the results, or you can even download that communication game plan like I was talking about. And I could, for example, print this out. This gives me a snapshot of what I should know. And this is probably more useful if it was a business-oriented conversation or communication that I needed to have. And then that way I could kind of map out what my plan is, how I would talk with them, what words I should use, and things like that. So that's kind of the high-level overview of this tool. So if anyone is interested, we'd be happy to demonstrate it with one of your samples, and then you could see how you feel you like the results or not. And if not, then it's fine. We might have Carol do an example or talk a little bit more about this because she really runs a lot of these with her clients
It's
all the time.
really a great way for people. They start to build, when you do your assessment, you get a wheel, and on the wheel there's 60 different positions. And so I've got clients who are actually plotting the key business relationships that they have with individuals on this wheel, and they print out these pages that describe that individual, and they will refer to this, information before they ever, before they have a meeting with them, just to refresh, how does that person like to be communicated with? How should I approach them? How much information should I give? How fast should I go? Should I let them be in control of the meeting when I go in? It's just giving you a heads up and kind of just some crib notes on that particular individual to have the most effective meeting possible with that individual. So, Miss,
Yeah,
where
I'm just
are
trying to
you?
see if I can find that wheel. There it is. Oh, finally. So 41 was the example that I got for Callie. So then you could see where it could be where I would
And
match up
it's
to
good
her and stuff like
to
that.
know because
So it's
it's
kind of
very
cool to see that.
interesting when I profile couples. It's not unusual for them to be clear across the wheel from each other, which Callie and Bryce are, according to his perception of her at least. But it normally that's the case. People actually love to be in a relationship with someone who's the very opposite because you want things that you don't have, right? So Bryce probably loves the chattiness and the directness sometimes that Callie can portray because he's a little bit less, he's more of the, he'll ask and she'll tell. Because I always say people on the right hand side of the wheel,
Yeah.
the DIs, are more tell, and the people over on the other side of the wheel, the CS, they're more of the ask. They need the content, whereas the DIs, they kind of forget to tell you why. They just want you to go off and do it. They think that you should, by osmosis, understand what it is that needs to be done. So, but that's the importance about it. Now, Misty says she profiled herself and she was a number 54.
Yeah. She's a
She
like-minded
is very
person with me.
close to
How nice.
Bryce. Very close. And so
We're
that
very
would
close.
probably be a strong indicator. She's more high C, so she would fall in the analyzer um, piece of the pie. As you see, there's 8 different styles around in the colorful edge of the wheel. So she would fall in the analyzer, whereas Bryce is in more of the coordinator. So
Yeah. So like you're seeing here, Serafima, this, yeah, we use this wheel in our own offices when we have clients come in. Kind of can show where they are, and where we have our whole team mapped on this thing in our office, so we can easily go, okay, Carol's more on the bottom here on the S side of things, and Jim, the owner of the company, he's more on this side. So you can see sometimes they have to get some understanding from each other, and they know that, which makes it great because you're not working in an environment where you're like, I don't know why Carol doesn't understand me, blah 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 blah, and muttering under their breath. Like they understand their differences, and therefore they can kind of adapt, like we talked about, and work together a lot more effectively. Where if they were totally oblivious to this, they would be butting heads, and they wouldn't even know why. If have you ever felt like that in some of the places you've worked before?
yeah, because all offices are going to be very diverse, and if you run across a style, a lot of
Yeah.
times Ds don't even know that they're offending anybody. They're they're very confrontational, and confrontation is actually very energizing to them, and they just think everybody should feel that way. Whereas if you are more, in the I and S profile, confrontation actually shuts you down and you don't like it. It's something that you would like to avoid. But D's, they're the very opposite. So if you know somebody's a strong D, so, and I deal with a lot of strong D's, and I'm at the bottom side of the wheel. I'm more people oriented and I don't like confrontation. But what I learned to do and how to be most effective with my clients is actually to be more direct, more confrontational, knowing that that's going to resonate with that client. I'm going to be able to build a rapport with them and a stronger relationship with them if in fact I do. Now, am I exhausted after that consultation? Yes. It's not my style, right?
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of really understanding, your own style, and then taking this people profiler and starting to profile other people that you work with, even in your personal relationships. It's so cute. We've had some people go, "Oh, this is great. I wish I've been married to my wife for 25 years, but I wish I had this so I would have been able to better get along with her parents, the in-laws, better understand how to get along with them." But it is a great tool. It's not always 100%, but it definitely gives you a starter.
Yeah, exactly. It's only 8 questions. How many questions do they normally ask
There's
on
about
the regular disc assessment,
I'd say
Carol?
between 25 and 40. It's
Yeah, so you'll get a lot more
absolutely.
accuracy out of that tool, obviously. But this will give you enough of a general aim of where to go so that you don't have to sit there and answer a 40 question survey about someone every time you want to talk to them. And you can always print these out once you've done it once and you're good to go for the next several months, I'm sure, unless they change drastically their own personality styles or anything like that. Um, but a good story I wanted to share also about someone who implemented these ideas into how he did his job was the story I heard about a car salesman. And when you picture a car salesman, normally you're thinking they're these very direct and they're gonna just they'll talk to anyone and they'll just go right to business and get you in the car and try to get a sale out of it, even if it's your first time coming in there and you weren't even looking for a car or whatever right away. Um, but this guy was a little different. He understood the styles here, and he had this couple that was coming to his lot, and he was starting to read what they were doing. And so this couple had a bunch of papers in their hand. They weren't very rushed to get into this dealership right away. They're taking their time. When they approached him, they pulled out their papers. They said, Hey, we're actually looking for a car from." This was maybe like I think it was a Ford dealership, but they said they were looking for one from like a Nissan dealership. But they just wanted to see what was a comparable model to the car that they had researched and liked, just so that they could kind of get a feeling that what they had researched for their car shopping was a good choice for them. And so this, just from reading some of those clues, what style do you think this customer was? If you have any clues and you've picked this up, go ahead and put it in the chat. What kind of style do you think this couple was that had already done a lot of their research, was not very, was not having to move fast on this decision, was very analytical um, and yeah, very concise about how they were doing their car shopping. Anyone have any ideas? See if anyone's chatting. All right, so here we go. We got a few typing before I spoil
And
it.
sometimes it's always easy to think about the birds. The birds are a great way to
Yeah.
analogize. Yeah, Donna,
See,
great. See, analyze.
that's it exactly. He picked up on a C. So if you, so what he did is he looked at this couple and he said, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem, no rush, no hurry. Let's look at the car that you wanted to look at." And so he goes through it. He answers all their questions because they probably had a lot of questions there. And he provided them even more information about that car so that they could take it and do whatever they needed to with it. And then before they left, he said, "And by the way, I know a great salesperson you should talk to at that dealership you're going to." And they're like, "Oh yeah, sure. Who do you recommend?" Because they liked this guy. He wasn't pushy. He wasn't trying to sell them right away. He didn't even bring up a sell, in fact. And so he goes ahead and he gives them a name of someone who was an opposite style of them, a very high D kind of style. And this guy is a really good salesperson. He wasn't lying. This guy probably closes a lot of sales. But he knew that this person would have a different kind of approach that was not used to their kind of communication style, and he might have some luck with them coming back if they went and saw someone like that. So sure enough, they went to the dealership. They asked for the guy that this guy recommended. He was a high D. He was very pushy. He wanted them to buy right away. He felt like these guys already did all the research. They had no reason not to buy. But the couple just didn't feel comfortable with that guy. And so what do you think that they ended up doing? They went back to the other dealership a little bit later, a couple days later or whatever, and they ended up buying the car that he showed them instead. because they liked the guy. They felt like there was a better connection, that they'd be better taken care of there. So it just goes to show, like, understanding these different kind of styles and picking up on what kind of people or what kind of personalities people have that you work with can really give you excellent results in the kind of jobs you do, the happiness that you get around it, and the people you work with. So I think we
Serafina's
will pick
boyfriend's
up
at
here.
51.
Oh, cool. I'm
That's
glad you guys are
great. That's
trying this
great.
thing out. That's
You'll have a lot
awesome.
of fun with it. A lot of fun with it.
Cool. Yeah. So we just demonstrated it. Here's how you can access it. It looks like most of you don't really need me to help you access it. But you can just download the trial there at thepeopleprofiler.com. I have an email going out later today that'll have all these links in there too. If you sign up for our Careertopia e-course, there's a free trial that you can get access to there. It's a little bit longer than the one directly off the website, because we have some lessons in the e-course that really help you take the most advantage of this tool, and build your own wheels. Actually, if you like those wheels, we have a lesson in there about how to build a wheel for your relationships, for your work relationships, for your friends, and stuff like that too. And it's also included as a 1-year subscription in the Careertopia Starter Kit. So here's how you buy if you want to get that starter kit. This is what has those assessments for your for the disc and those motivators, the report that I was showing you. I'm going to do something kind of cool and creepy at the same time over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this here, and that should, maybe you're seeing something open on your computers, some website. Type yes if you had that happen to you just now. But that should make it easy for you to find this if you want to get that starter kit and get started right away. Um, the other thing is to make sure to put this coupon code in there. We're doing a special offer until April 21st on Sunday, where you can get like $28 off on the starter kit if you want it. Or if you're just wanting some of the smaller assessments out of that, you can get them individually here with these codes too. And those will be a lot cheaper. And then we just want to end with some questions like always. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in. We'll be happy to answer them. And if not, we'll wish everyone a happy weekend. Does anyone have any questions, or did we answer them as we went through it? Yep.
That's a great analogy, by the way, Bryce, because you'll always do business with people that you like. So keep that in
Yeah.
mind, Serafina, when you start working with the public and promoting new products. That's why it's so important to learn to adapt.
Yeah, I've done a lot of promotion work myself on weekends and stuff like that. And being able to pick up on that kind of
Yeah,
stuff
so
is
Donna
really
wants to
helpful.
know, do you have any suggestions for communicating on job interviews where you have never met the person you're
Yeah.
interviewing with? It's like I had said earlier, Donna, you really want to approach them in a very non-aggressive manner, more S-like, right? The peaceful, soft tone, very genuine. When you go on job interviews, if you start to utilize these tools, you start to quickly identify whether they're a D, I, S, or C, and then start to adapt to that communication style. Also, look around in their office or wherever it is that you're meeting, and if it's their personal office, you can start to pick up on certain things to even identify, you know, what style they are. So, but definitely, I always say, really go in very calm and unaggressive, soft tone of voice, very genuine. And then once you start to realize, oh, they're a little bit more direct, then you're going to want to be able to sit more forward, look them in the eye, and be a lot more direct with them. So it's just, absolutely. If you've never met them, I always say go in as a high S. Do people
Yeah, it's good.
of the same category generally tend to get along? They do. Now, when you're giving an example of Rob's question is so great because I love the high Ds. When you get two high Ds together, you're going to think, watching them, they don't get along. Because remember, they love confrontation. Um, I had a client, I had a peer, we were doing a conflict mediation session, and she was also a D, but her D was not scoring as high as the gentleman's D. And I looked at the gentleman and said, John, you just love confrontation for the sake of confrontation. He said, oh, yeah. He said, that just gets me going. So, will they generally tend to get along? Yes. The, the, the styles that tend to get along the best are high I's, and then S's, and then D's and C's. So that's kind of the order that they end up, who gets along best with the same style. But
What styles probably have the most confrontation? That
what
would be the
styles
other
would be
side of it.
opposing? Um, would be the opposing.
Yeah.
But really, you'll think that D's don't get along because they are very confrontational. They just love confrontation for the sake of confrontation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, do you know any of those people that can totally get into like a verbal, like a really aggressive, like fight almost, and or like a debate, and then, but they're still
Yeah, they
like best
walk out of
friends.
the
They,
office
no
and hey,
harm's
let's
done
go have a
afterwards.
beer, and you're just going, wow. I'm,
Yeah,
I'm sitting back exhausted, and they're
crazy.
off ready to go, for the evening. Uh,
No, I had lots of friends like that. It drained
yeah.
me, but I, I was just like, I don't know how you do that, but yeah, you're totally right. There's no harm done, even though they can get raised voices, look totally like
Well,
upset and hurt
when you're
or
with
whatever,
high
but
Ds, you can
they're
never take
enjoying
it
it.
personally. So Misty says sometimes I think I'm a high D when I'm talking to other high Ds, but I scored the lowest in the D category.
Yeah, it could
Yeah,
be
yeah.
some adaptation or something when you're around other
Absolutely
people like
maybe
that.
adapting.
Yeah.
What you need to do is ask other people how they see you and start to get some feedback on that to really quickly identify whether or not, a lot of times we don't see ourselves as accurately as, to how we're projecting ourselves onto others. So that's what's always good to get feedback from other people around you, especially after you finish the assessment and make
Yeah.
sure it's accurate. I've had people come back and say, well, what happens if I was kind of answering it the way I thought people would see me or how I would like people to see me? I said, that's not right. That's not going to give you the most accurate results.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Our styles do change over time too. We started off the webinar with an example of my two different assessments while I've worked here in the company and how I've changed pretty a
Yeah.
lot for a lot of those different things there. So if you've gone through any
Right.
major changes, a new job, or you lost a job, or you've got married recently, or you moved to a new town, or anything like that, it's not a bad idea to assess yourself again, or even if it's just been a matter of time you stayed in the same place, you still could change a lot. And it's yeah, so it's always worth looking at. What is Seraphima? How do your clients view this program if they have already done a Myers-Briggs personality test by their company, if I may ask? That's a great question. I actually have a blog I'm working on that answers that
Oh,
question too, but Carol's probably better at
well, it's
answering this question.
interesting. Myers-Briggs and DISC, our assessment, are based on the same behavioral science. It's just that Myers-Briggs packages it a little bit differently. We feel that, you know, how do your client, they're very receptive because ours is more of a simplistic, uh, diagnosis, so to speak, or evaluation of yourself. Whereas Myers-Briggs, they have to remember whether they were a TIS or F or, and ours is you're either a D or you're, an I, an S, or a C. But you know what your two prominent are, whereas in Myers-Briggs, you're always looking at four different. But they really are based on Dr. Marston's behavioral science. So it all comes from, from the same place. It's just packaged a little bit differently, and we prefer to really look at just the four quadrants and keep it simple. And people are very receptive to that. And most of the time, their results from our tools are very similar to the Myers-Briggs results.
Cool. And Rob, I was just going to say too, it's excellent that you've been picking up on a lot of these styles without even being on that first webinar and asking questions like, did 2Ds get along? But if you want the first webinar that we ran, and you'll see a link to this too, it might be worth checking out too if this stuff interests you, because we go into that a little bit more detail. That was the whole focus of that webinar.
Perfect.
Well, awesome. Well, if that's it, then we would just want to thank everyone for coming. Thanks for putting up with all of our emails. I know this was a lot of information in the course of a week. Definitely subscribe to our blog if this kind of stuff interests you. If you want to stay up to date with any of the things that we're working on, any special offers and discounts or new services and products that we're putting out there in this kind of field too. But other than that, thank you guys for coming out on a Friday evening. Hope you guys have a good weekend,
Thanks,
and
everyone.
we'll see
Bye.
you next time.